There are wounds that do not bleed on the outside. Wounds you carry not in your skin, but in your soul. The wound of betrayal, the wound of rejection, the wound of a word spoken in anger that became a shadow cast over your spirit. The wound of what was done to you or what was never done at all. And the enemy has whispered in your wound that you are broken, unworthy, forgotten. There are wounds that do not show up on x-rays. Wounds that no doctor can diagnose, yet they define your steps, your decisions, your thoughts. These wounds do not bleed crimson, but they bleed into your life. They bleed into your relationships. They bleed into the way you see the world and the way you see yourself. And yet, when people look at you, they may see nothing at all. You smile, you laugh, you go on. But deep within, something still aches. This is the mystery of the invisible wound. The wounds that are not in the flesh, but in the soul. The wounds of rejection, of betrayal, of abandonment. The wound of a word you heard as a child that still echoes. The wound of being unseen, unheard, unloved. These are the wounds that shape our identity when we do not know who we are in Him. These are the wounds that speak louder than truth unless the truth silences them. The enemy knows how to speak into the wound. He doesn't waste time on your strength. He attacks your weakness. He doesn't come to the fortified gate. He slips through the broken window. And so he whispers, you're not enough. You'll always be broken. You'll always be alone. But I tell you this, the enemy is a liar. And the voice that speaks in your pain is not the voice of the shepherd. In the ancient scrolls, there was a woman bent over for 18 years, unable to straighten her back. Yeshua saw her in the synagogue, and he didn't just see her body, he saw her wound. He saw the years she carried it. He saw the spiritual weight behind it. And with a word, he healed not just her body, but her life. That is the power of the one who sees what man cannot see. The world treats invisible wounds by numbing them. Entertainment, addiction, distraction, all the ways of the flesh that avoid the pain, but never heal it. But the kingdom is not about escape. It is about confrontation, not with anger, but with light. For what you bring into the light loses its power in the dark. When you allow God into your unseen places, He will not recoil. He will not reject you. He already saw the wound before you even knew it was there. He saw the moment it happened, and He carried that pain to the cross before you ever cried your first tear. He does not ignore the invisible wounds. He came because of them. So if you carry a wound the world cannot see, you are not alone. You are not forgotten. The one who was broken came to make you whole. The one who was wounded has the power to heal what no one else can touch. And the pain that lives in silence, He can speak into it with a word that shakes the heavens and restores what was lost. Bring your invisible wounds to the invisible God, and you will find a healing that is deeper than pain, a love that sees what no eye can see, and a restoration that begins where the wound once lived. There is a mystery, a paradox so profound it defies logic. The one who is without sin became as if he were sin. The one who created life tasted death. The infinite became finite. The holy became wounded, and not just wounded, pierced, crushed, bruised. But why? Why would the Almighty, the Eternal, the I Am, choose to enter into pain? Because of love. Because of you. You see, the wounds in your life were never meant to be carried alone. From the moment man fell, from the garden to the wilderness, from the exile to the cross, God set in motion a plan to carry what you could never carry. And the plan was not distant. The plan was not abstract. The plan had flesh. The plan had blood. The plan had hands that would be nailed and a back that would be torn. The Holy One took on wounds. In the ancient tongue, the prophet said, He was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. The Hebrew is mechulal. It means to be profane, to be pierced, to be broken. The sinless one took on the punishment of the sinful. The one who spoke the stars into place became silent before his accuser, and with every lash, every thorn, every nail, He was not just enduring pain, He was purchasing your healing. Imagine it, the Son of God allowing Himself to bleed, not because He had to, but because He chose to. Wounds on His head for your thoughts, wounds on His hands for your actions, wounds on His feet for your walk, a wound in His side for your heart. Every wound was for a purpose. Every drop of blood was the ink of a love letter written to your soul. The world asks, where is God when it hurts? But God does not stand far off. He steps into the pain. He enters the fire. He walks into the suffering, not as an observer, but as a sacrifice. And because he was wounded, he can touch your wound, not with pity, but with power. Not with theory, but with compassion born of experience. There is no wound you carry that he cannot understand. He was betrayed by a friend, rejected by his own, mocked by the crowd, pierced by the proud. He was stripped, beaten, spat on. He knows the wound of abandonment, the wound of silence, the wound of injustice. And still, he forgave. Still, he loved. Still, he rose. And now the wounds that broke him open the way for you. His brokenness becomes your healing. His death becomes your life. His sorrow becomes your joy. For in the kingdom of God, nothing is wasted, not even a wound, especially not a wound. So when you think you're too broken, too wounded, too far gone, remember this: the most wounded of all became the most victorious. And because he bore your wounds, you no longer have to bear them alone. That is the mystery, that is the miracle, and that is your hope. There is a sacred mystery in your pain, a holy paradox, that the very thing you thought would destroy you, the wound, the heartbreak, the failure, the shame, can be transformed into the very thing that sets you free. For in the kingdom of God, wounds are not the end, they are the beginning of something greater. What the enemy meant to use as a mark of your destruction, God turns into a sign of your redemption. Your scars are not your shame, they are your testimony. In the natural realm, a scar is what remains after the wound has healed. It is a trace, a mark, a memory of the pain that once was. But in the spiritual realm, a scar becomes something more. It becomes a seal, a witness, a declaration that, yes, you were wounded, but you are no longer bleeding. Yes, you are broken, but you are no longer crushed. You passed through the fire, but the fire did not consume you. Do you remember Thomas? He could not believe that Yeshua had risen from the dead until he saw the scars. And what did the risen one do? He did not hide them. He did not cover them. He said, look, touch, put your hand in my side. He still bore the wounds, but they were no longer open. They were no longer bleeding. They were transformed, glorified. And it was in that moment that Thomas fell to his knees and declared, my Lord and my God. The wounds became the proof. The scars became the revelation. The very place where death tried to enter became the place where life was revealed. So it is with you. The place of your deepest pain can become the place of your deepest purpose. The place where you were attacked can become the place from which you now minister. The very thing the enemy used to silence you, God will use to give you a voice. But first, it must be given to him. The wound must be surrendered. You cannot carry it and be healed by it at the same time. You must lay it down at the altar. And when you do, something begins to shift. The wound begins to close. This look what was done to me, it begins to declare, look what God has done for me. That is the way of the cross, death into life, pain into power, scars into signs. And if he did not hide his scars, why should you? Let them be seen. Let them tell the story. Let them bear witness that you were struck down, but not destroyed, wounded, but not wasted, broken, but now walking in resurrection. Your scars are no longer signs of defeat. They are signs of victory. They are proof that you walked through the valley and came out on the other side. They are the marks of the redeemed. And in God's hands, even the wound becomes a wonder. There is a truth that runs through the ancient scrolls, through the wilderness of Sinai, through the prophets, and into the new covenant. And it is this: what is hidden cannot be healed. What remains in the shadows cannot be redeemed. And so it is with the wounds of your life. As long as they stay buried, they remain unhealed. As long as they are locked behind closed doors, they remain untouched by the light of God. But when you bring them into the light, something changes, something breaks, and something begins to heal. The first question God ever asked man was not about doctrine or law. It was a question of the heart. He said, where are you? He asked it in the garden after the fall, when Adam was hiding among the trees. Why? because sin and shame always cause us to hide. Pain causes us to cover. But God cannot heal what you refuse to bring before him. He does not force his way in. He stands at the door and knocks. He waits for you to open. And so the enemy whispers, keep it hidden. No one would understand. If they knew what you carry, they would walk away. But that is a lie from the pit. The truth is, when you bring your wounds to the altar, you don't find judgment, you find mercy. You don't find rejection, you find redemption. The only hands holy enough to judge you are the same hands that were pierced for you. It is written, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. Why? Because the act of confessing, of bringing something from darkness to light, breaks its power. The enemy thrives in secrecy, but the light of God exposes, and in exposing, it cleanses. The wound that is brought into the open becomes the wound that begins to close. There is a Hebrew word, orik. It means light. It's the same light spoken in the beginning, the light that pierced the void, the darkness. And that same light now stands ready to shine into your deepest places. But you must allow it. You must say, here I am, Lord. This is my pain. This is my scar. This is the thing I've hidden even from myself. And the moment you do, you begin to walk in freedom. It may feel terrifying. It may feel like death, but it is not death. It is resurrection. For only that which dies in the light can be raised in glory. And the place you thought was your end becomes your beginning. The tomb becomes the birthplace. The grave becomes the garden. So do not be afraid to open the door. Do not fear the exposure, for what is uncovered by man brings shame, but what is uncovered by God brings healing. Let the light in, let the wound be seen, and you will find that what you feared to reveal is the very thing God is ready to redeem. There's a powerful truth hidden in the journey of healing. Transformation begins with surrender. You see, the wound you carry, the pain that lingers in the corners of your heart, cannot be healed as long as you cling to it. To hold tightly to your hurt is to hold tightly to your prison. But when you let go, when you lay it down before the Almighty, the chains begin to break and healing begins to flow like a river in the desert. The Hebrew word for surrender is hitpalel, to submit, to bow down, to give over. It is not a sign of weakness, but the very act of strength. The gateway through which the power of God moves into your brokenness. For it is only when you acknowledge your inability to heal yourself that the divine steps in with his healing balm. The proud heart may resist, but the humble heart invites the touch of the healer. Think of the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years, a wound that no doctor could fix, no remedy could reach. She had carried it alone, hidden, desperate. But the moment she reached out in faith to touch the hem of Yeshua's garment, the power, her surrender in that touch, her willingness to let go of control that opened the door for transfer. So it is with you. Your wound is a heavy burden, but it was never meant to be yours to carry forever. The cross is the altar where you bring your pain. There you lay down your anger, your bitterness, your sorrow, your fear. When you place it there, you are not giving up. You are giving over to the one who bore wounds for you, who understands your pain like no. And in that act of surrender, the miracle happens. God does not demand perfection before he heals. He asks only for openness. He does not require strength before he restores. He offers strength to the weak. When you surrender your wound, you invite the light of his presence into the darkest place of your soul. And the light does not just shine, it transforms. It melts the cold stone of hurt into a wellspring of hope. But beware, for surrender is not a one-time act. It is a daily choice to release what you think you must control. It is a constant handing over of your pain, your past, your wounds. And with each surrender, the scars lose their sting. The pain loses its power. And your heart begins to beat with new life. So do not hold back. Bring your wounds to the altar. Surrender them to the one who is wounded for you. Let go of the weight, the bitterness, the fear, and watch how God takes what you once thought was your weakness and makes it your strength. For in surrender, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself. And in finding yourself, you find the healing you have long sought. There is a divine purpose hidden within the pain you carry, a purpose that the world often fails to see. The wounds you bear, the scars you hide, the sorrow that weighs heavy on your heart, they are not random accidents or meaningless suffering. No, they are part of a greater plan, a sacred tapestry woven by the hand of the Almighty. Your pain has a purpose, even if you cannot yet see it. The ancient prophet spoke of a suffering servant, one who bore the pain of many, whose wounds brought healing to the nations. This servant story was not just about suffering, it was about destiny. For in God's economy, pain is never wasted. Every tear, every broken moment, every shattered dream becomes a seed planted for something greater. The thorn in your side, the fire in your soul, the valley you walk through, they are the very soil from which your purpose will grow. Look at Joseph. Thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, forgotten in prison. His wounds were deep and real, yet God used every one of them to position him for a divine purpose, to save a nation. Your wounds may feel like pits, like places where you were thrown away, but God is not done with you. He is crafting from your pain a pathway to your destiny. Your suffering refines you like gold in the fire. It strips away the impurities, the distractions, the false identities. It brings you face to face with your need for God and shapes your character in ways comfort never could. What feels like a curse becomes a blessing in disguise, for it draws you closer to the heart of the one who makes all things new. And your story, yes, your story can become a beacon of hope for others. The pain you endured, when surrendered and transformed, becomes a testimony that breaks chains. Your wounds become a doorway for others to find healing. The very hurt that once silenced you becomes the voice that encourages a broken world. But you must trust the process. You must believe that the God who began a good work in you will bring it to completion, even through the pain. You must hold on to the promise that your suffering is not in vain, that it is shaping you for something greater than you can imagine. So do not despair in your wounds. Do not allow bitterness or anger to blind you to the purpose behind your pain. Instead, open your heart to the God who sees the end from the beginning. He knows you to walk by faith, trusting that your wounds are not the end of your journey, but the beginning of your destiny. Remember this: God redeems, God restores, God uses even the deepest wounds to bring forth new life, new purpose, new glory. Your pain is not a detour, it is the path. Your wounds are not your defeat, they are your divine appointment. And in that truth, you will find hope. There is a promise that echoes through the ages, a promise that no sorrow is greater than hope, no darkness deeper than light. When you stand in the shadow of your wounds, it can feel as if the night will never end. The pain seems endless, the tears unceasing. But I tell you now, hope is stronger than hurt. Hope is the breath of the Almighty that revives the weary soul. Hope is the anchor that holds firm when the storms rage. Hope is the song that rises in the valley of despair. In the ancient scriptures, the psalmist cried out, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." That night may be long and the pain may be fierce, but the morning is coming. The dawn breaks over the horizon of your soul, and with it comes a joy that the world cannot take away. This is not a superficial happiness, but a deep, unshakable joy rooted in the very presence of God. Your wounds may feel like chains, but hope is the key that breaks every link. It is the voice that calls you out of the grave of your past and into the garden of new beginnings. The one who bore the wounds for you did not remain in the tomb. He rose, victorious over death, pain, and every sorrow. Because of him, hope is not a wish. It is a certainty. The enemy wants you to believe that your pain is permanent, that your story ends in defeat. But the Spirit of the living God declares otherwise. He breathes life into dry bones, turns mourning into dancing, and transforms brokenness into beauty. Every tear you have shed is counted, every sigh is heard, and every wound is held in the hands of the one who makes all things new. Hope does not deny the reality of your suffering. It acknowledges it, embraces it, and then carries it forward into resurrection. It is the faith that what was once dead will live again, that what was once lost will be found, that what was once broken will be restored. Hope looks beyond the present moment and sees the promise of restoration, healing, and glory. So hold fast to hope. Cling to it like a lifeline. Let it rise up in your spirit like a flame that cannot be extinguished. Speak it over your life, even when the night is darkest. Declare that your wounds will not define you, your pain will not have the final word, and your story will not end in sorrow, because hope is stronger than hurt. Hope is greater than grief. Hope is the resurrection power that will carry you from the valley of your wounds into the heights of his glory. And in that hope, you will find strength, peace, and the promise of a new day. Walk forward in that hope. Let it be your song. Let it be your shield. And know this, your future is bright, your healing is certain, and your joy is coming. The wounds in your life are not your end. They are the beginning of a deeper journey. If you give your pain to the one who is wounded for you, he will redeem it, transform it, and use it for glory. You are not forsaken. You are being shaped. Let the healing begin. May the God of all comfort wrap you in his peace. May your wounds become wells of strength. And may your journey be marked, not by what hurt you, but by who healed you. Go in strength, walk in healing, and thank you for taking this sacred step forward.